Congratulations, because this message is not an accident. You didn't stumble here by mistake. Heaven scheduled this encounter. God orchestrated every delay, every distraction, and every divine nudge just to make sure you would hear this before October 24th, because something is about to shift in your life. And He wanted to prepare you, not surprise you. There are moments in your journey when God interrupts your routine because He is about to rewrite your destiny. You've been asking, Lord, what are you doing? Why does it feel like everything around me is shaking? But hear me, the shaking is not punishment. It's preparation. God is not breaking you, He's positioning you. Before He reveals His next move, He clears the stage of everything that can't go with you. This season you are entering requires a different version of you. One that's sharper in discernment, stronger in faith, and silent toward distractions. That's why people left. That's why certain doors closed. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. The divine hand of God is pruning you because the next harvest cannot grow in the soil of your old habits. You see, every time God is about to promote someone, He tests their trust. You prayed for elevation, but you didn't know the elevator comes through isolation. You asked for strength, and God answered with silence. You cried out for clarity, and He gave you confusion, not to frustrate you, but to build your focus. Because when God hides, He's not absent. He's watching to see if you'll still believe when you can't see. Before October 24th, God is calling you to prepare your spirit for divine instruction. The window that's about to open won't stay open long. The opportunities that will appear will not be ordinary, but only those who have ears to hear and hearts to obey will recognize them. Heaven doesn't shout, it whispers, and only the surrendered can catch the whisper. This message is your warning and your welcome. Your warning, because you cannot carry doubt into destiny. Your welcome, because grace has already gone ahead of you. The things that terrified you last month are the same things you will testify about next month. God is accelerating His promise, but He's demanding alignment. So stop worrying about who doesn't understand your calling. Stop explaining your process to those who were never meant to go with you. The oil on your life is not for everyone to approve. It's for you to steward. Heaven chose you to hear this before October 24th because divine timing is about to meet divine obedience. You are standing at the edge of a turning point. The reason the warfare intensified was because your name just entered a divine conversation. Angels are being positioned. Instructions are being released. But God needed to see if you'd listen before the door opens. Before October 24th, separate from noise. Fast from fear. Guard your heart. Because what's coming next will not make sense. It will make history. You don't have time to entertain distractions when destiny is knocking. Congratulations, not because the journey was easy, but because you survived what was meant to silence you. You didn't quit, and heaven took notice. You stayed faithful when it made no sense. That's why this message found you. You were chosen to hear this before the breakthrough, not after. Something is about to unfold that will confirm everything God promised you. You will look back and realize that this word was your preparation for manifestation. So lift your head, strengthen your spirit, and align your heart, because the countdown to your confirmation has begun. Congratulations. God chose you to hear this before October 24th. God is preparing you through isolation, pruning, and divine timing to position you for a breakthrough before October 24th. When God chooses a vessel for something great, He rarely announces it with applause. Instead, He conceals it in seasons of silence. You may feel like heaven has gone quiet, like your prayers are bouncing back unanswered, but what's happening is divine rearrangement. Every connection, every delay, every disappointment in this period has been permitted by God not to punish you, but to prepare you. There is a holy separation taking place around you. People are leaving. Situations are shifting. Doors that once opened easily are suddenly locked. And you wonder if you've done something wrong, but you haven't. You've simply outgrown that level of destiny. Isolation is not rejection, it's graduation. God isolates those He intends to elevate, because not everyone can handle the version of you that is emerging. Before the next season can start, the noise of the last one has to fade. When God prunes, it feels painful because He cuts away what you thought you needed. He removes relationships that were comfortable, habits that were familiar, and environments that were safe. He is not taking things from you. He is taking burdens off you. A tree cannot grow upward unless it first loses branches that drain its strength. Likewise, you cannot rise into divine purpose carrying people and patterns that weigh you down. Every pruning is an announcement that growth is near. It's God saying, I'm about to make you fruitful, but I must first make you faithful. Some of the tears you've cried lately were not signs of weakness, but signs of spiritual surgery. Heaven has been trimming you quietly so that when your time comes, you can stand tall without breaking. Divine timing is the invisible clock of heaven. It doesn't move by your emotion or your calendar. It moves by God's intention. You may look at the time and think you're late, but in eternity's design, you are right on schedule. God has been orchestrating your steps, aligning unseen forces, and preparing the hearts of those connected to your next assignment. You think nothing is happening, but in the background, everything is moving. The reason it feels slow is because God is synchronizing the seen with the unseen. If He gave you what you're praying for before the right moment, you wouldn't be ready to handle it. Timing is not delay, timing is protection. God is ensuring that when He releases what He promised, no man, no mistake, no spirit can take it from you. The waiting season is not wasted. It's the womb of transformation. God hides you to build you. He removes the spotlight so He can refine your spirit away from public opinion. You've been a season where people don't understand your quietness, your distance, your change of focus. They think you're lost, but you're being refined. God often works in silence because deep work requires no announcement. He is teaching you to trust His pace. He is training your faith to rest in what you cannot see. He is making you spiritually strong enough to carry the weight of His promise. Before October 24th, something is shifting in your spiritual rhythm. The discomfort you feel is the signal that the next chapter is forming. Isolation is God's classroom. He teaches lessons in loneliness that crowds could never comprehend. When you are alone, he adjusts your hearing, tunes your vision, and reveals who he truly is without the interference of others. The voice of God becomes clearer when the voices of people fade. That's why he sometimes shuts every door you depend on. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's jealous for your attention. When you stop chasing validation, you start catching revelation. In isolation, he introduces you to your real identity, not the one shaped by others' opinions, but the one defined by his intention. You discover that your value was never in visibility, but in obedience. Pruning is God's process of proving who you are. It's the stage where you lose things you thought were permanent. It's where your faith is tested not in abundance, but in absence. Can you still worship when the answers don't come? Can you still trust when you're misunderstood? The pruning tests your loyalty to God's plan. And those who remain faithful during pruning become fruitful after it. God is removing the counterfeit to make space for the covenant. What he's cutting away could not survive where he's taking you. The relationships that ended, the opportunities that faded, the plans that failed, they were never meant to meet your destiny. They were meant to train your discernment. Every loss is a hidden lesson. Every ending is disguised direction. Divine timing teaches you patience in pressure. It humbles your pride and purifies your motives. While you wait, God is not withholding. He's watching. He's watching how you handle hiddenness, how you manage uncertainty, how you respond when others are celebrated while you're still waiting. Because character is tested in the dark, not in the spotlight. He's forming in you a faith that is not dependent on feelings. He's shaping a believer who can stand still when nothing seems to move. This kind of preparation cannot be rushed because purpose that comes too early becomes destruction. Before October 24th, God is bringing your life into divine alignment. The people, opportunities, and moments connected to your next level are being positioned like puzzle pieces, unseen, yet perfectly fitted. Heaven is making arrangements for your introduction. But you must stay sensitive because divine timing doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers through conviction, through peace, through inner prompting. When your heart is tuned to God, you won't need a sign. You'll just know. This is why he had to isolate you so you could learn to hear him without noise. So, as you walk through these last days before your breakthrough, guard your spirit. Don't fight the pruning. Don't rush the process. Every quiet day, every unanswered prayer, every closed door is working for your positioning. You are being shaped into someone who can stand before kings and still remain humble before God. You are being refined to carry influence without losing innocence. You are being prepared not just to receive blessings, but to manage them with wisdom. The waiting is not punishment, it's divine trust. Heaven trusts you enough to take time with you. God's preparation always looks like separation before elevation. The fact that he's isolating you is proof that he intends to reveal you. The pruning means you are ready to produce. The silence means heaven is near. Before October 24th, everything that has felt delayed will make sense. Everything that felt like loss will reveal purpose. Every tear will translate into testimony. Because what God has been doing in private, He is about to announce in public. And those who once doubted your journey will see that isolation was not the end of you. It was the making of you. Alignment, obedience, and spiritual focus are the keys to recognizing and receiving the opportunity God is about to release. Divine opportunities are never random. They are reserved for those whose hearts and steps are in sync with heaven. When God is preparing to shift you into a new level, He begins by aligning your priorities, pruning distractions, and calling your spirit into focus. Many people miss divine moments not because God didn't speak, but because they weren't aligned to hear. Alignment means you are positioned where heaven can find you. It is the posture of readiness that says, Lord, I'm available for whatever you require. When your spirit, your thoughts, and your actions line up with divine instruction, doors that were once locked suddenly begin to open effortlessly. The supernatural always flows through the channel of obedience. There are many who pray for miracles but live out of order. You can't ask God to move if you're standing outside His will. Alignment begins when you surrender your agenda for His purpose. It's the willingness to say, even if I don't understand, I will obey. Because obedience is not about agreement, it's about trust. Every time God gives an instruction, He tests whether you love His voice more than your comfort. Some of the things He's asking you to do in this season won't make sense until after you obey. That's how divine timing works. Heaven doesn't explain, it commands. And those who move without needing full understanding are the ones who step into divine acceleration. Obedience is the currency of heaven, and those who pay it unlock access to what others only dream about. Spiritual focus is the discipline that protects your alignment. You cannot walk in clarity if your mind is clouded by noise. In this generation of endless distractions, God is calling you to separate from the unnecessary so you can discern the eternal. Spiritual focus means fixing your eyes on what God is saying rather than what circumstances are showing. The enemy's greatest weapon is distraction because he knows he cannot destroy what's protected by obedience. So he tries to detour it. He brings unnecessary drama, emotional confusion, and fear to blur your vision. But when your spirit is focused, you learn to ignore the noise and follow the whisper. You stop reacting to what's around you and start responding to what's within you. Alignment also means your emotions must bow to your faith. There will be times when you don't feel like trusting, when obedience feels costly, and when focus feels impossible. But that's when your spiritual maturity is revealed. God doesn't measure your faith by your feelings. He measures it by your follow through. If He tells you to wait, you wait. If He tells you to walk, you walk. If He tells you to release something, you release it without negotiation. Because divine opportunity doesn't respond to talent or timing. It responds to obedience. The blessing always follows the instruction. When God told Abraham to leave his homeland, he didn't receive the promise until he started walking. You don't need to see the full map to take the first step. All you need is trust. Before every major shift, God tests your alignment. He watches how you handle small directions. He examines if you're faithful in the quiet seasons. Many want elevation, but few are willing to follow direction. Heaven only trusts those who are disciplined enough to follow divine order. When your spirit is aligned, even your silence carries authority. When you are obedient, your presence becomes prophetic. Everything around you begins to work in agreement with heaven because you are walking in rhythm with divine timing. That's why some doors close suddenly. Not because the opportunity was bad, but because the timing was off. When you are aligned, you don't chase what leaves, you trust what remains. Obedience requires sacrifice. It demands that you let go of comfort zones and familiar patterns. Sometimes God will call you to walk away from what looks promising to step into what's truly ordained. It might not make sense to your logic, but it will make sense to your spirit, because your spirit always recognizes what your flesh fears. Obedience is the bridge between revelation and manifestation. You can receive a promise, but without obedience, it will remain potential. Every great destiny was born in the soil of surrender. When you yield your will, heaven yields its power. When you say yes to God's direction, you say no to delay. Spiritual focus is not just about prayer, it's about awareness. It's the ability to perceive what God is doing even when it's not visible. It's being so tuned into His presence that you can sense His movement before it manifests. Those who are spiritually focused are never surprised by shifts. They are prepared for them. They live from a place of inner calm because their attention is anchored in God's sovereignty. When you're focused, distractions lose their grip. The opinions of others no longer carry weight because your eyes are fixed on something higher. That's why the enemy works so hard to break your concentration. He knows if he can't stop your obedience, he'll try to scatter your focus. But when your gaze remains steady on God's will, no storm can shake you out of position. Before God releases new opportunities, He checks your alignment with His timing. Many times, blessings are delayed not because God said no, but because the vessel isn't ready. You can't pour fresh into a vessel that's out of place. So God will spend time adjusting your perspective, refining your priorities, and stretching your patience until you're aligned enough to carry what He's about to pour. That's what this season has been, an alignment season. You've been wondering why doors haven't opened, why things feel still, but what's really happening is alignment behind the scenes. Heaven has been adjusting coordinates to make sure when the door opens, you'll be standing right in front of it. Obedience also opens divine visibility. When God can trust you with instruction, He reveals insight. Many pray for revelation, but revelation is reserved for the obedient. The more you walk in obedience, the clearer His voice becomes, because obedience creates intimacy, and intimacy unlocks understanding. The reason God is calling you to a deeper level of surrender right now is because what's coming next requires sharp discernment. Not every opportunity will look divine, and not every open door will lead to destiny. You'll need the sensitivity to distinguish between what's good and what's God. And that sensitivity only comes from walking in obedience and focus. Spiritual focus also means guarding your atmosphere. You cannot expect to hear clearly if you're surrounded by confusion. Protect your space, your time, and your energy. Keep your heart clean from bitterness and your mind free from fear. God can't pour new direction into a cluttered soul. The clearer your inner world becomes, the more accurate your discernment will be. That's why He's been calling you to silence, to solitude, to simplicity. He's removing unnecessary noise so that when the divine opportunity presents itself, your spirit will recognize it instantly. Alignment, obedience, and focus are not just spiritual disciplines. They are prophetic preparations. They prepare the soil of your life to receive what God has already decreed. Before October 24th, heaven is setting things in motion. The opportunity that's coming is not random. It's the result of your quiet yes, your unseen obedience, your consistent alignment. You won't have to chase it, it will find you. Because when your spirit is in order, blessings become magnetized to your presence. Divine favor flows naturally to those who are positioned properly. The season you're entering will not be about striving, but about stepping into alignment so that heaven's timing and your obedience meet in the same moment. And when they do, everything will shift.